also related with the Pacific family, so then the world is included. However, we must be very sensitive, understanding then the many strains related with it. As then obviously China takes over then the last days trades of the world, then we can't overburden them either. So then obviously would have the families of the Pacific a place where most of the conversations and trades conversation, and then including programs for the islands of the Pacific concerning those who are then nearly drowning and those wanting relocation, he would have to also report to Australia, and then they themselves report straight to China. So it's a very important understanding, because there are many areas where then the Chinese is going to be extremely busy for the next years, as we understand where we stand at this end of time. So then the fact of the situation is, as we exclude ourselves because of our condition, a time of rebuilding, and our country is extremely depleted, and we have only 40 years to save our monetary system. Afterwards, we won't be able to hold anymore. So then the plan is truly set, and news are coming in indicating more and more and more nations lining up themselves very wisely with the plan of Yahweh. It is absolutely amazing. We watch unfolding before our very eyes, but then we can be a help to this plan by understanding what is our position, and while we then rebuild along with Africa, our brothers also on the other side, as we then build up together both places, the continent of Africa and then our own country, and then lifting the embargo from Cuba and becoming more acquainted with the trade down south. So there are many perspectives, but always understanding these times a time of rebuilding. So then the nations, they have a clear understanding from the prophetic of how should the world run. And these are very precise, very specific, because part of these is nearly very clear. There's not a word to use it. So at least we have a plan. And the first, most important pace to take, or then a step to take, is then Israel becoming friends with China. And then absolutely starts then an organization of peace and trade. That's why then we hear and we read in Revelation, then the nations doing trade at the end. You have to understand then the concept. The concept, when it comes from Yahweh, is always positive. Because as Shimon said, or Solomon said, is a time to rebuild, a time to destroy, a time to love, a time to hate, a time to live, a time to die, a time to go forward and time to retrieve. He didn't say those words, but those are very obvious over the line of thinking of his context. So then, understanding from the prophet Daniel, we understand he saw then the statue while he was dreaming, and he saw the many parts of the statue being with distinct types of metal, each signifying a specific nation or kingdom. And then the same concept uses then in each of the prophetic understandings of old. But we must know how to read it. The country leading of the end is China. There is no question regarding it. Absolutely no question. Because Yahweh has chosen a nation that never engaged in war. So Yahweh is taking the lead and showing a nation that was absolutely brutalized when the time of the war was then evident, during the Second World War. They were abused, misused very badly, and from then on they rebuild. But during this time we must rebuild. But then most importantly, we must be humble and understand the times and the seasons. The time and season at the moment per the understanding of Moses, during the time that he gave then the Holy Torah. The second part of it related with the prophets. It's a time of rebuilding. No more war. We should shun war. So then we are in line with Yahweh's agenda, and the world benefits from. He has prepared a country never engaged in war before. A country that was never using military for personal gain. Do you understand? Never enticing evil for gain. But a country truly working to do trade. Genuinely doing trade. That's why Yahweh has chosen them. Because then at the moment then Israel makes partnership with China, then opens the highway where then trade is going to bring understanding amongst the nations. So then we can rebuild. And Africa and us building up together. While then the Pacific, they have Australia and New Zealand, and they can take care of the programs regarding the islands of the Pacific. Because in a normal sense, understanding the diplomatic situations from island nations in the Pacific, the Chinese is not going to spend time wasting fuel for short orders. Because they're going to be busy with the Middle East. So it would be very interesting for a person begin to think a straight line from China to Australia, from there then to the islands. But then the international program must be then reliable, it must be honest. Because the Chinese are very generous. But if they are then involved with deceit, then for sure brings trouble. So then we are part of Yahweh's plan for the end. But at the moment, in terms of USA, we are so far not understanding the plan of Yahweh. We are involving ourselves in areas of the South China Sea. We shouldn't be there. We are involving ourselves with Australia. We should not be there. There is no reason for it. Try to understand China. They never engaged themselves in war. They don't have any interest in starting wars to get benefits from. Purely for self-defense. Because we taught them this way many years ago. And they learned very nicely. So then as we exchange these leadership, then we can rebuild. And then we begin to change our everyday understanding of thinking, how we think, how we say, because war is out of the agenda for the moment. It's extremely crucial what we present on television, on the computer, what we place our focus on. Because Africa is going to copy what we will be doing. As we then remind ourselves where we came from, as we rebuild, as we then started from the past, prior of Second World War. Then Africa has the chance of lining up with us. So then when we rescue our monetary system in the next 4 years via stabilization of our economy, then we in Africa as companions, we can then take on part of then the world's trade. In other words, become then partners. Whereas by the time then the program in the Pacific is going on, and Australia very much in charge of it, have France, New Zealand, and then straight line from China, and then straight to Australia, so they don't waste their time. So we should be more aware of these factors the next few days, 10, 20 days, and then let's verify what comes in terms of relations with the world and China. Each of those relations is going to give us prophetic understandings of the Torah and how the world should behave under the line of the prophetic from the time of Moses until the closing of the age. These were gifts given from the Creator through His prophets of old, and we must understand what they are. Because truly this time is very extremely sensitive and delicate, very, person could say fragile for us as a country. Because it's never fragile in terms of Yahweh's plan. Yahweh's plan is Yahweh's plan. Never changes. But then we can either complicate it for ourselves, because we are facing the very last plans of this planet. Either we rebel and then we ourselves then we have to take on the weight of it. Because in the word of Yahweh we don't find the West going against the trade. We only find the main leader of this trade and the nations doing trade with it. And since we are living a time of rebuilding, what do you think the answer would be? We should refrain ourselves from trying to be what we are no longer. Not until we rebuild. And our friends in Africa, they are waiting also for a chance to rebuild themselves. So then we rebuild together. And the whole stabilization system of the trades of the world, economics and politics, are coming from China. We must face it. The world must face it and then go along with it, because Yahweh has determined. We read in Revelation. Where do you find the third parts of the ships? Asia. Who is the leader in Asia? China. What does the word of Yahweh states? Then the nations and the kingdoms would do trade with him. What do you think this means? The nations would rebuild and do trade. So then we are in line, in harmony with the word of Yahweh. But then we must be very cautious, because sometimes Satan, he comes around and, oh, but they are going to take over the world. What about you then? Were you not in charge of the world before? And then he's going to try to entice. Because then, no, we must understand the plan. The plan of Yahweh is giving us time of rebuilding. It's not time of imposing. It's not time of talking tough. because we have nothing to talk tough with. So we should retrieve and rebuild. It's a sign of strength. For some people, they have a twisted mind, a sign of being weak. But it's not. It's being strength. Sign of strength, because then we are gathering ourselves and we are rebuilding as per the agenda of Yahweh. We are going to play by His game, because it's truly not a game but a plan. As long as we are in line with Yahweh's agenda, then we reap the benefits. Because then we refresh ourselves during these next 40 years, we do the work, we remind where we came from, and we are in line then with His plan, and then we help Africa. Great continent. And then the rest of the nations, they lined up themselves with a diplomatic understanding of China. That's the moment the world then was waiting for so long, and the whole situation lined up perfectly. What we must be cautious is, let's not provoke the situation and then end up with civil war at the end of the next 4 years. That's the last situation we want, is a civil war at the end. But rather, we maintain what we have very quietly and very profoundly. We then do our rebuilding. Because as per the instructions given to us from Yahweh after His prophets of old, and they gave us the prophetic understandings of the end, do we find any part of the third part of the ships of the world and nation coming against them? You won't find it. You only find Yohanan stating the nations were doing trade with the system. Indicates whosoever is trying to come against this final plan is going to be frustrated. Because if it was relevant, it would be recorded. But it's not recorded. And we understand this new force in the world does not use war for personal gain. On the contrary, their products are so inexpensive there is no reason for war. It gives an understanding then we have to get to work. So then we can relieve ourselves from then the Mideast and wars and what's going on over there. The whole situation is taken care of if we are wise. And it starts with Israel. The Prime Minister of Israel making friendship with China and establishing trade. Thus the highway that leads to organization. And then no longer this talk of Palestinians and Israelis. The Palestinians, they won't own the land. You can work on the land, do trade on the land, but it's not theirs. Because Yahweh has another plan for them in the near future. Speaking of Jerusalem, no. Absolutely not. However, they can do trade over there, but they don't own it. While Yahweh then is working His plan, when the time comes, then the Palestinians are included. Can be sure of it. It's recorded. But the time is a time of rebuilding. And the plan works. Evaluated from every side you can ever think of, it works 100%. Any further cases that people can't understand, they should speak with the prophet of Yahweh from the holy camps or cities, tabernacles. Because the 7 spirits of Yahweh are upon those people. They can give the answers. Until then, we do trade, because it's a time of rebuilding. But we must be very wise whom we elect. We are in a very dangerous position. If we impose, we are going to be rejected. If we impose further, we are spending more what we don't have it. Until the world gets furious, and then they would no longer send us their products. And then we are ruined. And when we are ruined, then we are in civil war. At the time is not the time for Romney. It's not his time. His agenda does not fit with Yahweh's, and Yahweh's agenda is more important. The perfect person for the job is what we have. We have a very understanding plan, very slow but very sure. Another 40 years, then our country will destabilize if we work. Won't be perfect, but at least we can start extracting our own petroleum, our own gas, while the Middle East would be at peace, at least for some time. Because every country in the Middle East, no exception, have said and indicated, we want more trade, we want our countries to develop, we want more industry, and so on and so forth. You know the story. So the path is provided. Because thus Yahweh has set this time for rebuilding.